Games have an incredible ability of letting us step into the shoes of characters who are, in a nutshell, way cooler than we're ever going to be. Through the use of their mechanics, these games have us doing things that feel incredibly empowering to pull off, and that remains true no matter how frequently you do them throughout the length of the experience. This is a feature dedicated to games that are able to do just that. Ghost of Tsushima. What if we got a Batman game set in feudal Japan? Ghost of Tsushima would literally be that. The entire point of Sucker Punch's epic samurai game is to give players a vast and versatile toolset to use in both stealth and combat, which you then use throughout the game to strike fear into the hearts of your enemies. No matter how many times you clear out a camp with lethal precision, it just never loses its luster. Batman Arkham City.
I was only here for Freeze and the hostages, but now I'm taking you down too.
Speaking of Batman, we can't not speak of Arkham City in a feature such as this one. The Arkham trilogy being as good as it is at making you feel like Batman may be a meme at this point, but it's also 100% true. Whether you're gliding over the dark alleys of the city, hanging in the shadows while you stalk a foe, or taking on a dozen enemies head-on, single-handedly, this is a game that never fails, and it has to be said, to make you feel like Batman. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. What's the one thing that can rival the feeling of being Batman? Well, the feeling of being Spider-Man, of course, and you're unlikely to find a game that does that better than Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Building on the excellent foundations of its two predecessors, Insomniac's 2023 mega hit improved upon perfection with things such as web wings, character switching, Venom abilities, faster traversal speed, and much more.
It was dangerous when we found it, and I never should have brought it anywhere close to you. I'm sorry. This is all my fault, all right? Not yours. Not yours.
In terms of pure moment-to-moment gameplay, Spider-Man 2 is nothing short of a marvel. Infamous Second Son. The previously mentioned Ghost of Tsushima may very well be the best game Sucker Punch has made in years, if not ever, but the studio has been allowing players the ability to fulfill their ultimate power fantasies through its games for a long time. Case in point, Infamous Second Son, which was arguably a much more satisfying and explosive superhero or supervillain sim than its predecessors were.
It goes away.
Delson's power set was an absolutely devastating one, and using it was never not fun, be it for traversal, combat, or anything else. Prototype. When you mention Infamous, you're pretty much legally obligated to mention Prototype, so this is us fulfilling our civic duties. Activision and Pandemic Studios' Diamond in the Rough classic Prototype was particularly good at letting players hulk out in an open world that was a blast to simply exist in. Very rarely did the game not make you feel like you were the most overpowered character on the screen at any given time. The Darkness 2. The textbook definition of a cult classic, Digital Extreme's 2012 first-person shooter has won over many a fan with its high-octane action in the decade plus since its release. Dual-wielding weapons firing endless barrages of bullets at enemies feels great in The Darkness 2 in and of itself, but add to that your tentacle-like demon arms, which you can use to literally rip your enemies' hearts out, and you get a game where you can't help but feel constantly overpowered in the best way possible. Evil West. Those who pine for the good old days of the PS2 era will love everything that Evil West has to offer. A no-nonsense, linear, focused action experience with incredible combat and little to no fat left to trim. What's even better is that the action that it does deliver is genuinely excellent. No matter what kind of dark fantasy monstrosity the game has you fighting, using your arsenal of ranged and melee weapons to brutalize your foes never stops being an insane amount of fun. Control. Remedy Entertainment excels at turning players into freight trains, and that's exactly what Control did when it launched in 2019. Not only does protagonist Jesse Faden have access to a mysterious, magical gun that can change shape, she also gains access to an increasing roster of literal force abilities throughout the course of her journey, allowing her to levitate, telekinetically manipulate objects and enemies, make shields made of debris, and more. Once you get past the initial hours, Control has you feeling unstoppable. Elden Ring. Wait, hang on, we hear you say, Elden Ring is the opposite of making you feel like a boss, surely. The game where you die over and over and over and over and, well, you get the point. So how could a game synonymous with difficulty make you feel like a boss? Well, because you eventually get past the part giving you trouble. Whether it's a particularly nasty boss or an area that is giving you far too much trouble, there is ultimately very little that does not fall to the player who masters their skills. And the sense of accomplishment and surge of victory that you get as you slay that boss after double-digit attempts and seeing that bright yellow text on screen proclaiming you as the victor? Yeah, little else in games, if anything, really compares to how much of a boss that makes you feel. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Shadow of War continues Talion's ascent to power through his bond with Celebrimbor, and the powers that he gains access to as a result make for some incredible fun to be had throughout the game. By design, Shadow of War's stealth and combat mechanics ensure that players rarely feel like they don't have the upper hand. While on top of that, on a wider scale, you also eventually command your own army of orcs. It's hard not to feel an inflated sense of self after that.
Aside and let me!
The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a game about a badass. Therefore, it stands to reason that it will make you, the player, feel like a badass too. In fact, anything less than that would represent a failure on the game's part. Thankfully, The Witcher 3 delivers. Geralt is faced with all sorts of monstrosities and abominations over the course of the game, and takes down every single one. And spoilers for a 9-year-old game, when the game does let you play a certain other character, that character is also equally a cool character. At no point during The Witcher 3's long runtime do you feel anything less than completely equipped to take on whatever is coming your way. Having the full confidence that you can take on anything thrown your way? Well, what's more boss than that? Horizon Forbidden West. Taking on mechanized dinosaurs and animals shouldn't be easy, and Horizon Forbidden West doesn't make it easy. It does, however, always ensure that you have the tools to overcome those challenges in the coolest way possible. From craftable traps and different types of ammunition to weapons that you can knock off machines to use against themselves. When combat encounters in Forbidden West are in full flow, there's little else that can feel that satisfying and engaging.
名前ぐらい教えてもろてもええやないですか。桐生一馬だ。堂島の竜。登場界の桐生一馬さんですか。いや、そんな男は知らねえ。
Yakuza Kuami 2. Yakuza games are basically like the game version of those battle animes, which start out relatively grounded, but soon enough have escalated the stakes to absurd degrees. Stakes that the protagonist must, by necessity, overcome and dispatch. Yakuza Kuami 2 is the remake of what was only the second game in the series, so you might imagine it would still keep things relatively grounded. Well, you'd be wrong, because Yakuza Kuami 2 is deranged in its lunacy, in the best way possible, mind you. Reveling in how over-the-top it is. As Kiryu, you end up beating countless people, including a man who is probably twice your size and built like a tank, walk away from the middle of a bomb explosion, and also punch a tiger to death. And as always, he does all of this while remaining completely unperturbed. Heck yeah. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Pivoting to a completely different kind of gameplay experience, Metal Gear Solid 5 proves that you don't have to be loud and explosive to be scarily lethal. Though of course, if you want to do it that way, the game totally lets you do that. With a staggeringly vast array of tools, gadgets, and what have you, combined with the full scope of its emergent gameplay, Metal Gear Solid 5 lets you outsmart and outmatch your enemies in increasingly creative and empowering ways, the way few other games have ever managed. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Let's end with another Metal Gear game, though one that goes about making you feel like an unstoppable force of nature very differently, but just as effectively, if not even more so. Because really, that's what you are in Metal Gear Rising. Cyborg Ninja Raiden is at his absolute peak in this game. Which sees you performing an increasingly bonkers set of action feats. This is a game that has no idea how to chill, and it's better for it. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.